You're telling me my precious daughter, Emily, is getting married to a guy who graduated from an online high school. I was at a loss for words when I went to report our marriage to Emily's father, a practicing physician who has been successful in his own clinic. I was met with fierce opposition, his face turning beet red. No way, no way, no way, no way, don't be ridiculous. Emily will not marry someone like you. Emily's father was furiously scratching his head, clearly enraged. You could even hear the grinding of his teeth, as if he was biting down hard. Emily is my precious, precious only daughter, and you expect me to give her to someone with such a low education. If she marries a lowlife like you, even our grandkids will turn out stupid. Absolutely not. His voice cracking in places, he yelled at me. Having dated Emily for a long time, I had assumed her father would give us his blessing, but at that moment, I couldn't respond. Overwhelmed by the situation, Emily ran out of the house. Neither Emily's father nor I could have imagined the situation that would arise in a few years, far beyond any disagreement. My name is Addie. I've been childhood friends with the girl next door, Emily, playing together since we were little. I'd go over to Emily's house to play, and she'd come over to mine. Close to graduating from preschool, we were sitting on a sofa at her house eating ice cream, when we made a promise: let's keep eating ice cream on this sofa when we become elementary students. Not just as elementary students, even when we become adults, even when we're old. Let's get married when we grow up. Yeah, those are some of the good memories of the promises we made. Emily's mother and my mom always warmly watched over us being so close. Emily's mother passed away unexpectedly when we were in elementary school. The cause of her passing was cervical cancer. During the funeral, Emily clung to her mother's casket, crying the entire time, and seeing her like that made me cry buckets too. And while crying, I apparently told my mom, "I'll protect Emily." I don't remember saying it, but as Emily became gloomy without her mother, and I spent every day comforting and being with her, I truly started to feel the need to protect her. Emily's dad, called Robert, was a doctor well trusted in our local community in a place that could be compared to a well-known suburb in Illinois. Though primarily an internal medicine physician, he would also see us for head injuries or other ailments and help decide whether we should go to the larger hospital in town. But usually, his treatments and medicine did the trick. Ever since I was born, for vaccinations during preschool and for the slightest cough or stomachache, I was taken to Robert. I hated shots and always cried, but since Emily was by my side, they would have us get vaccinated together. Those are now fond memories. When Emily and I reached our junior year in middle school, we started studying together daily at her house, planning to go to the same high school. Emily had a housekeeper named Mrs. Brown, who took care of everything for Robert, who was too busy with his practice. This allowed Emily to focus fully on her club activities and entrance exam preparations. Mrs. Brown would make us sweet treats as a snack, and it was so delicious and comforting, a perfect treat for our study sessions. Thanks to our perseverance, and perhaps the sweet treats, we both passed the entrance exams to the most prestigious high school in a location similar to the outskirts of a big city like San Francisco, reached by a combination of bus and train. Both my parents and Robert were thrilled with our success. By this time, Emily had fully adapted to life without her mother. Mrs. Brown's cheerful presence was likely a big help. In elementary school, Emily often showed tears, but now she rarely ever cried, showing me her bright smile every day. And yet, this time, it was my fault that Emily's smile faded. It was the winter of my freshman year in high school. I went to Robert's place to get her flu shot, and as I was leaving, he called me back and made me sit in the examination chair again. He carefully palpated around my neck and under my arms. "I hope I'm just overthinking this, but your lymph nodes seem a bit swollen. En route, you should go to the city hospital with your mom." Robert's face was unusually serious, and I managed to suppress the rising anxiety as I went home. Then, on the following Monday, with the referral letter in hand, I went to the city hospital and I was diagnosed with malignant lymphoma. Malignant lymphoma, not an easy illness to overcome. No, it wasn't even clear if I could get better. I decided to quit high school and focus on treatment. At first, I was just scared of the stark outline of life that had suddenly become so clear to me. In the days from the discovery until hospitalization, I was so afraid of the passage of time that I stayed in my house with the curtains closed. Emily just sat by me without saying anything, just being there. I might lash out at you because of my state of mind. Please go home. Even when I told her that, Emily didn't leave. It's okay to take it out on me as much as you need. You shouldn't be alone right now, Auntie. Emily, who I thought was just a kind girl, had become a strong woman before I knew it. And for me, who couldn't bring myself to leave my room, she brought me meals. I don't want to eat this. I knew that my mom was worried about me and made nutritious food. She was trying her best because once I was hospitalized, I wouldn't be able to eat her home cooking for a while. But still, I said that. You don't have to eat it all, just try a bite while it's warm. Emily said that and scooped a spoonful of the cream stew my mom had made and offered it to me. I don't want it, I said, even as I was crying. Then Emily forced the stew into my mouth. The taste of that stew was sweeter, creamier, and more vegetable flavored than any I'd had before. It was just the best. Before I knew it, I was clutching the spoon, crying, and had finished the entire plate. Emily. What is it? Emily, I will definitely come back. I'll get better for sure. When I'm discharged, please let me eat your stew. Okay, I'll learn how to make stew from your mother, so I can cook something really tasty for you, so you have to get better and come back home. Saying that, Emily hugged me. We cried and held each other tightly. I couldn't break the promise I made with Emily. I swore in my heart that I would overcome any treatment. But as I swore, the treatment for lymphoma was no small ordeal. The drugs wreaked havoc on my organs, and radiation therapy made my hair fall out. Especially hard was when a patient in the same room had a sudden change and didn't come back. The thought of possibly ending up like that myself one day. It was terrifying beyond words. Through all my anxiety, Emily was still by my side. After her club activities, she would visit me in the hospital every day, and we would spend time together in the lounge until the visiting hours ended. She talked about what happened at school today, how Robert was worried about me, and even the love stories of our classmates. Although I had to drop out of school, I felt like I was still attending because Emily shared stories with me every day. This went on for a while. Thanks to the doctors and nurses, my illness gradually improved. It took quite some time, and by then Emily and the others were already in their senior year of high school, so my dream of returning to school seemed out of reach, but I was filled with joy that I was nearing remission. Next to Emily, who came to the lounge, I decided to study as well. My studies had come to a halt after freshman year of high school, so I was starting over from that point, but it turned into days where Emily and I would study together every day. Whenever I didn't understand something, Emily would explain it to me. If Emily didn't understand it either, I would write a letter to my old high school teachers. Despite the fact that I had already left the school, every teacher would kindly write out explanations and hand them to Emily. Everyone was rooting for me. Feeling this support made my passion for studying, which had been fading, reignite. The day I was discharged from the hospital and returned home had arrived. For dinner, Emily, who had learned the recipe from my mom, made a creamy chicken stew. Remembering the stew from when I was hospitalized, Emily, my parents, and I couldn't stop our tears. Even after starting rehab at home and being declared in remission, it wasn't smooth sailing, but it was definitely easier than when I was hospitalized. Emily decided to become a nurse, influenced by my time in the hospital. She was inspired by seeing the nurses working as key players in the hospital. Watching Emily work hard at nursing school, I decided to attend a correspondence high school. I aimed to get the qualifications for university admission and, if possible, I wanted to become a doctor. Now that I was getting better, I felt a strong desire to heal sick people, just as I had been. Once I started at the correspondence high school, I studied fiercely. Emily was still by my side, reviewing what she learned at school that day, while I worked on past university entrance exams. I knew that other guys my age already had cars and motorcycles, taking friends out for drives, or treating them to meals at fancy restaurants with money they earned from part-time jobs. I felt apologetic for being an exam student at this time, but Emily didn't seem to care about it. "Let's progress at our own pace. I'm happy enough just seeing you getting better," she would say. And then, the spring when Emily graduated from nursing school, I was accepted into the medical school at a university in New York. I really wanted to take her to New York with me, but Emily had secured a job at the hospital where I had been admitted. "Study as much as you need to. I'll wait for you, no matter how long it takes." Those were Emily's words as I boarded the train headed for New York. "I will definitely come back here." Looking into her eyes, I promised her firmly. Although we had been physically apart during my hospitalization, we had been close in distance, but now I would be in New York, starting a new chapter away from Emily, with whom I'd spent nearly every day since we were small. Was unnerving, but I took the memories of our time together and sank into the express train seat. I would become a doctor in New York, and then surely return to my hometown. I'd become a doctor like Robert. Holding both hands tightly, I felt my familiar town getting farther away. Years passed. I passed my medical licensing exam without a hitch. After finishing my residency, I returned to my hometown. Of course, I stayed in touch with Emily while I was in New York, and we met up during the long breaks, but now we can be together all the time again. Closer than ever before. Because this spring, we decided to get married. I stepped off the high-speed train and transferred to a local line. Straight from the station in my hometown, I dropped by Emily's place. "It's Andy. I came back home today." I was greeted by the housekeeper, Mrs. Brown. "I heard the news. Andy, you're getting married to Emily, aren't you? Congratulations. You two have been through a lot, but you've overcome it together. Truly, congratulations," Mrs. Brown said, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Yes, a lot has happened," Emily said with a gentle smile. "Sorry for making you feel lonely, but I won't be away anymore, except for nights when I'm on call. That's nothing, just a moment compared to when you were in New York," Emily joked, and the three of us laughed together. We relaxed, drinking tea Mrs. Brown had made, waiting for Robert to come home. Once he arrived, I would give my marriage greeting, and then the four of us would laugh together over Morty. That was my intention. Emily getting married to you. Robert. Having been with Emily all this time, it never crossed my mind that Robert would oppose us now. I was caught off guard and lost for words. "No way, no way, no way, no way, don't be ridiculous. I won't let Emily marry you," Robert raged, scratching his head in fury. "Emily's." He clenched his back teeth after saying that. I could hear the grinding sound. "She's my precious, precious only daughter. How could I give her to someone with such a low education? Your kids would turn out to be fools." "Absolutely not." Robert's voice broke in places as he shouted at me. I realized something was wrong. Although we hadn't met recently, I've known Robert for a long time. He really isn't the type to say such things. "Dad," Emily stood up with a clatter. "How can you say such things to Andy? Just because you have a graduate degree. Calling him low-educated makes no sense. You know we've always been together, Dad. I can't believe you would say such things. Unbelievable." With that, Emily stormed out of the house, her face flushed with anger. "That's right, Robert. You know how much these kids care for each other. Emily's right. I know that. I do know that." Mrs. Brown agreed, but Robert just shook his head with his eyes closed. "Robert," I tentatively called out to him. "Understand me. Just understand my feelings," he said. Then he went into the back room and slammed the door. Mrs. Brown seemed unaware, and Emily was no longer in the house, so I think I was the only one who noticed Robert was holding something back. He was probably holding back tears. His voice was choked up at the end. I didn't understand why he was crying, but I knew what he said to me wasn't what he meant. Maybe he was thinking about the time when I relapsed. He didn't want Emily to go through that hardship. "Mrs. Brown, I'm going to look for Emily." I can't even apologize enough. I never would have thought Robert would say such things to you, Andy. Still, you're going to look for Emily. I don't think Robert meant to say those things. He's not that kind of person, and he was a little teary at the end. I think something's up. Please stay here for him, Mrs. Brown. I'll go find Emily. I left the house. It was March, yet still chilly. I ran to the places where Emily might have gone without even a coat. I found her at the second cafe I checked. Emily apologized repeatedly for making me feel bad. I just told her to come home, but she shook her head. And so, Emily started living alone near her workplace. Several months later. Recently, Emily, who had not been feeling well, called to say she was hospitalized. I rushed to her room. She said she had felt dizzy and came to the hospital, only to be admitted for testing. It seems she had severe anemia, and it was decided to investigate the cause. Hope it's nothing serious. I was on call that day, so during my breaks, I stayed in touch, hoping the tests would reveal nothing. But soon I got the call. Stage 2 cervical cancer was found. Emily was putting on a brave face, and although it was early stage, it was the same disease that took her mother. She couldn't help but feel anxious. Keeping in touch frequently, I spent time up until the end of my workday. As soon as I finished my work, I head to Emily's hospital room. To my surprise, Robert was also there. Emily, since that marriage proposal, I hadn't really had a proper conversation with Robert, but none of that mattered now. I rushed to Emily's bedside. "What, it's you. You're still here with Emily, aren't you? It's because of someone like you that she got sick." "Robert, no, that's not right. You shouldn't say such things to the doctor." A junior doctor who seemed to have been explaining Emily's condition to Robert hurriedly tries to stop him. "I'm terribly sorry, Dr. Bennett. He has been quite confused and upset. You don't have to use such formal language with this guy." No, Robert. This is Dr. Bennett. He graduated from a prestigious medical school in New York and went on to specialize in surgery. He's one of the top young doctors at this hospital and has successfully performed many cancer surgeries. It's said that you're in safe hands if Dr. Bennett is in charge. He's that kind of doctor. This guy, a doctor, a surgeon who graduated from a prestigious university in New York. Robert stood frozen as he looked at me. That's right. After graduating from a correspondence high school, I too became a doctor in New York. Now, I'll be the primary physician for Emily. I will ensure the surgery succeeds, even if it costs me my life. Please, entrust Emily to me. For a moment, Robert's eyes darted about in shock. Dad. And he studied hard and made it into the competitive science program at a prestigious university in New York. And he really excelled at the university and became a doctor. I want Andy to perform the surgery. I don't want it any other way. Emily said softly. Robert, I've performed many surgeries for cervical cancer. I want to provide Emily with the best treatment possible. Could you please entrust me as her primary physician? Andy. Snapping back to reality, Robert took my hand. I couldn't protect her. I regret every day that if I had paid more attention, I could have discovered her illness sooner. And now, to have Emily stricken with the same disease. When you told me about your intention to marry Emily, I said terrible things to you. It wasn't what I truly felt. I just couldn't bear the thought of letting Emily go. I wanted to keep her close, but with you, Andy, I had no reason to object. I thought I had found one reason to oppose and said those things. I don't know if it's too late to ask for forgiveness now, but I do want your forgiveness." Robert spoke with a choked voice, gripping my hand tightly. "Robert, please don't worry. I knew that wasn't what you really felt." And Emily, she was angry, but deep down, she loves you very much. That's why she contacted you immediately after finding out about her illness. Let's fight this disease together. The junior doctor, who had been explaining the test results, seemed to read the situation and left the room ahead of us. The three of us joined hands, promising each other a successful surgery. After that, given Emily's youth, the surgery was performed promptly. I was the surgeon, and the operation was a success. 5 years have passed since then. As her primary physician, I judged the chance of recurrence to be extremely low and concluded her treatment. Once again, Andy, thank you for saving Emily, and for the awful things I said to you. I want to apologize again," Robert said, bowing deeply in the car on the way back from the hospital. "No, Robert, please lift your head. What I did was merely my duty as a doctor. Besides, I learned all of this from you. Watching you dedicate yourself to community health care inspired me to become a doctor. If Emily's illness is cured, it's thanks to your efforts, and you saved my life, too. If you hadn't noticed the swelling in my lymph nodes when I was in high school, I wouldn't be here right now." "We shouldn't talk about that time, Andy," Emily interrupted, tears welling up at the memory. "And there's no need for apologies, really. I knew at that time you didn't mean those words, and Emily was ready to marry me even without your blessing, but I was the one who said we should wait a bit longer." "Is that so? That's a relief, Emily. It's good that Andy was there for you, Andy. Please continue to look after my daughter." And so, our marriage, after a long wait, finally received Robert's blessing. We decided to hold a wedding in the courtyard of Robert's clinic. There were wedding venues in our hometown, though they weren't exactly modern. There were plenty of options if we went to the state capital, but that would have inconvenienced the guests. So we settled on the beloved clinic with many cherished memories, a place loved by the community. Robert attended the ceremony holding a photo of his late wife, and many locals came as well. Of course, many of my classmates from elementary to high school attended, making it an unforgettable wedding. I will officially take over Robert's clinic next spring. And of course, I plan to have Robert work with me part-time for a while. I will learn the ropes of community healthcare from him. I aim to become a family doctor who is as trusted and loved by the community as Robert. The real start begins now.